All right, it's time for our annual, hey, Warriors, let's get a big man discussion here headed into the offseason in summer. And listen, the Warriors could use some help all along the roster. But I thought that we would start with focusing on the big man because I feel like most people feel like that is atop the list of priorities to upgrade the front court, get more size, and a true starting center big man. Let's start in tier one with Giannis. We've talked about it for what, four years now. I think we all understand that it will require him most likely to force his way to Golden State. How likely is that? Your guess is as good as mine. I think the Steph Curry connection is very much real. And he's flirting with everybody right now. Toronto, Miami, no state taxes in Texas, right? So I can't call it, but we all understand tier one, top of the list, Giannis, the Greek freak, right? Have you ever heard the quote, "A goal without a plan is just a wish"? We all have our goals when it comes to eating healthy in our fitness journey. And something that has really helped me with my journey, and I think can help a lot of you, is Factor. Fresh, never frozen food delivered directly to your doorstep, all dietitian approved and created by a team of chefs using ingredients of integrity to keep you feeling good all the time. And when it comes to meal prep, meal planning, this is 2 minutes, no cleanup, no mess, and it keeps you planned for your meals throughout the week. And you've got over 35 different meal choices to choose from per week. There's chef's choice, keto, low cal, and something that I have been dabbling into lately is their premium meals. You can keep an eye out for surf and turf, depending on the season and time of the year, but they've got filet mignon, shrimp, and that just upped the game for me. And, I'll place one or two of those ones per week within my meal plan. And you see, your boy, yeah, I'm getting in shape here. I'm not even getting in shape, I'm in shape. And Factor has been a really nice tool for me to keep my plan so my goal wasn't just a wish. So head over to factor75.com or click the link in the description and use the code 50alchemy for 50% off your first box and free shipping. That's factor75.com, code 50alchemy for 50% off your first box plus free shipping. A name that, shout out to my patrons, because this was brought up to me in a live stream with them that I just really hadn't considered. But the number 2 player on my list, really, and maybe all of these acquisitions, never mind big men, Jiren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, he is going to be a free agent next summer, 2026 summer. But because he missed out on All NBA, he missed out on that Supermax extension this year. Memphis clearly wants to, give him an extension now and probably build more around him than Ja, if we're being honest, right? But because he didn't make that All NBA team, it would behoove him, you would imagine, to play this season out so he would be eligible for that Supermax. The bottom line is there's not a real incentive for Jiren Jackson Jr. to sign this extension. And if Memphis gets froggy, they're not exactly stable in their situation right now with Ja and his availability. They surprise fire Jenkins and, they had an ugly end to the season. And so, listen, if Jiren Jackson Jr. is made available, you want to talk about, just what the doctor ordered. 6'11", shoots the three, former defensive player of the year. Now, they all have their warts, right? He does get in foul trouble, but, if Jiren Jackson Jr. somehow was available this summer, you offer everyone not named Steph or Jimmy to try to make that happen. All the draft capital and however you would the bidding would be, I think, right around, it'd be higher than Durant, and probably it'd be in between Giannis and Durant as far as the bids out there for someone like Jiren Jackson Jr. But, again, it was made to my awareness that, like, hey, he, what it was compared to me was the De'Aaron Fox situation in Sacramento, where it was like, and that's how that played out. And you saw what Fox went for. I think Jiren Jackson would, in my opinion, go for more than De'Aaron Fox because just he's a more unique star player to acquire. There are a lot of really good guards in this league. There aren't too many, all-star young big men who play a modern style. So Jiren Jackson Jr., yeah, those are the tier 1 lists, pipe dreams, whatever you want to call them. Those are the only two I have in there as far as the big men, the true big men go. Moving on to tier 2, another name we've talked about for a while, Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen, did he play last year in Utah? Did he play? It kind of feels like Danny Ainge overplayed his hand with Lauri Markkanen, giving him that extension and holding him kind of, I won't say hostage. It sounds like Lauri and his family like Utah. It's a fit for him. But look, I could make the argument that at 22, 23 years old, Kuminga is a much better fit for Utah. The what if, and, that he could be better than Lauri in a few years. I very much think that. And I think more importantly, if you're looking at an organization who doesn't have a superstar, a true lead guy, Kuminga's mental makeup and mentality is much more that than Lauri Markkanen's. But, again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I think Lauri, look, it would have been exciting to get him last summer, right? And then people were really upset about, Podziemski's untouchable and all these things. But it played out this season, and I understand Utah was tanking, kind of got punished for it, seemed like it, right, from Adam Silver. But, Lauri he's not him. He's not him. He's a good player, and he would fit really well with the Warriors, but he's not a guy you sell the kitchen sink for. And I think now, with maybe his value going down a little bit in Utah, kind of looking around, we didn't land Cooper Flag and their timetable. Maybe it makes a little more sense. The cost is a little lower. And I think for Golden State, it makes more sense with Jimmy now. It makes much more sense with Jimmy because Lauri wouldn't be asked to be the true number 2 on this roster. Last summer, it was like, all right, Steph and Lauri. Obviously there's Draymond, but we're talking about like scoring options and go-to guys. I was a little uneasy about that thought. But now if Jimmy in the picture and he's kind of like the 2B third guy and the way he would fit with Jimmy playing out on the perimeter, it makes a ton of sense. At what cost? I don't know. Ainge doesn't seem very reasonable. But I think that it's a name that's back out there on the market. Next, in tier 2 of this big man list, Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings. Fox gets shipped to San Antonio. They had a really it feels like it's falling apart in Sacramento here. What? Keegan Murray, where are you? Malik Monk, durability. Kings will be kings, right? The Kings will be the Kings, man. Now I have some empathy for Kings fans, but not too much, considering y'all pop so much shit during our playoff battles and all that. Y'all are the Kings. What you gonna do? So y'all gonna mess it up. No. So Sabonis, after the Fox trade, he gave out the comments that he needs to, what was the exact wording of it? He needs clarity. He needs to seek clarity from the front office on the direction moving forward, right? And in NBA talk, that's kind of code for like, I might ask out. I don't like how this is going, right? And so we'll see, right? And if he does ask out here this summer, or he does be made available, they gave him $43 million per. He is on a super deal, so I don't know what the market quite will be for him when he is a center. While the regular season numbers are gaudy, a lot of people are probably under the belief that like ultimately he's gonna get played off the floor at some point in the playoffs. And, kind of like Towns, I guess played off the floor is strong because he's gonna play with that type of contract in the role that he has on a team. But Towns gives you much more offense, like to justify the defensive liabilities. I think Towns is worse than Sabonis defensively, honestly. But he does have some limitations. And so, look, it's probably a stretch to imagine the Warriors and Kings making a trade. When was the last, was it the Mitch Richmond trade? Well, I mean, it's been a while, right? And Vivek, and, I think, listen, the Kings front office isn't exactly an intellectual haven. You know what I'm saying? And so like they do weird things. And I think if Vivek thought he was getting the better of the deal and getting over on the Warriors, Would you do a Kuminga sign and trade with Moses Moody for Sabonis? And, I get it. He doesn't really stretch the floor, but because of his passing, he can play outside of the paint offensively. Like, he is probably the best dribble handoff center in that type of game in the league outside of Jokic, which Jokic doesn't count, right? He's just like his own thing. But like, he would fit the system crazy. He's an elite rebounder, high motor. You could hide him in zone. I would be intrigued. As crazy as this sounds, I'd be intrigued to see Sabonis in our offense. And then you say, well, what about Draymond? What about Draymond? I mean, yeah, we've seen this before though. Like, I don't know how deep the beef is. I mean, he did kind of try to cave his chest in, but hey, Chris Paul showed up 2 years ago and it was all roses. So I don't know if they could work past that. But Sabonis is a name that potentially could be out there. He'd be a great system fit, costs a lot. What do y'all think about Sabonis? I'm curious. I think this will be a 50-50 between Dub Nation. Next up, Tier 2 big men, Naz Reid. Naz Reid. Listen, I'm not sure I even wanted to put him in Tier 2. I know that Dub Nation is in love with Naz Reid, and on paper, he's this perfect stretch big man. Did you watch him in these playoffs? I did. Obviously, I did the Warriors-Wolves series, right? I think I did. It was OKC, Minnesota. I had a breakdown of that. And it's funny because I think Warrior fans, Dub Nation, we've watched him through the lens of him just giving it to us. He plays so well against the Warriors. That's like our view of him. But if you watch him more objectively in other matchups, he doesn't do any of the little things. He doesn't box out. His closeouts are atrocious. And, I just don't think he's quite who we think he is. And again, I get it. Shoots the three, some weak side rim protection, but Big Jelly, listen, at the contract he's on right now, cool. There's limitations. He's not going to rebound as much as you want. His rotations aren't that sharp, but he's about to get paid. He's about to get paid. And so I've cooled significantly on Naz Reid. Again, I know a lot of y'all are like, oh no, he'd be the perfect fit. You have to, the value of it. And again, go watch some other Wolves video, some other Wolves tape games of him. And I think you'll see him more objectively that he is not, I think he's a sixth man, right? As he was the reigning sixth man of the year. I just don't think he's like the answer of like a starting guy you fill in there. And he's not quite big enough to be a center either. So look, I don't want to shit on Naz. Like, I wouldn't be mad at the acquisition, but I'm not as excited at it as I previously was. All right, moving on to Tier 3 here. Brook Lopez, Splash Mountain. 37 years old. He is a free agent who is going to be courted by a lot of teams. Look, I think most of us understand. I would like Lopez more than Naz Reid when you consider value and just overall like doing the other things. Naz, the thing with Naz is, right, he's a loud player. Like some of the threes he makes, the way he'll attack a closeout, you're like, oh, or he'll get a big block, right? And that sticks in the minds of us, the viewers, the fans. And I'm just telling you, be wary of Naz. I'd rather have big old Splash Mountain at 37 years old. Again, he's a free agent. The Lakers he's going to get a lot of courting. At what cost, right? Would he take the mid-level to come back to California? He's a West Coast guy, played at Stanford. And, he and his brother, they're strange cats. They're different type of dudes. So it wouldn't shock me if Brook, chose quality of life rather than taking the biggest bag on the free agent market. And then you want to talk about fit here because the NBA is playing more zone, right? And he'd anchor the zone. He's a true 7-footer, one of the biggest dudes in this league. And you saw what Steven Adams did to us in that playoff series. Like, that's a neutralizer right there. He can truly match up with the true bigs in the league, like on the block and hold his own, shoots the three from deep and does the little things, boxes out, high IQ, system fit. And so he would be atop my list as far as like realistic ads this offseason. Brook Lopez. Now, I think the negative would be 37 years old. You're adding another dude that, it's like, is he going to make it through an entire season in a playoff run? You can only have so many guys headed towards 40 on a roster. But Lopez, yeah, I'd be into it. Here's a name for you. DeAndre Ayton. Buy low. 35 million per year. And the concept would be like the Wiggins project all over again, right? But as a big man, as a center, right? To be fair to Wiggs, Ayton has shown far more bum-like qualities throughout his career, right? But there were those few seasons in Phoenix when they were contenders, when they had Chris Paul, where he looked like who we thought he was. And that is one of the more physically gifted big men in this league. Like, he can do it all. He's got a soft touch. He can run the floor, good hands, move his feet. Like he can do it. The caveat is he can do it all when he wants to. He doesn't exactly dominate. And he's just kind of proven to be a bit of a bozo. Let's be honest. But, JK fits their timeline. And it would be a risk. It would be a risk. Like, look, I would get the gamble on doing it, but the chances are halfway through the season, I'd be cussing him out every night. You know what I'm saying? But, and the other question I think would be, would Portland deal with us in a transaction after the GP2 fiasco? Who knows? I would say that was Bob Myers. This is Dunleavy Jr. Maybe he can establish a different type of rapport. But DeAndre, Ayton is going to be on the trade block for sure. And a lot of people probably view him as like a salary dump at this point. So I don't know how you'd make that happen. But if you could do it and take the gamble and say, all right, with Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph, just have him buttoned up all the time. And if you get good Ayton, like the ceiling on that move would be super high. Like if you hit with it, it could be like, oh my, like top 3 seed in the West. It really could. The chances of it happening, you tell me. Now, the other option in Portland would be Robert Williams. And, he's on a decent deal, like, what is it, 12 and a half, 13? Like, you could sign and trade JK for him probably straight up, and they'd be like, oh, please, for sure, right? I don't know if that's fair value for us. And I don't think you can trade for Robert Williams. I think that, if he becomes a free agent or if you can dump, listen, if he wasn't injury prone, he would still be in Boston and he would probably be like a top 10 center in this league because of what he does defensively. And if, could, should, would, like that's just not the case. He's just never shown the ability to stay on the floor. And so, I know that name has been put out there. I can't, that's a risk I couldn't take. Not with our window here. I couldn't do it. Vooch, it's been discussed way too much. The deal seems to still be out there, right? They have interest in Kuminga. Do y'all remember we played the Bulls twice towards the end of the year and Quentin Post kind of gave it to Vooch. He outplayed him in 2 matchups, just shot the ball better. And like, look, I get that Vooch is, more ready for the playoff, much more experienced, more playoff ready, but they're kind of the same player. Post is bigger, doesn't have the post game that Vucevic does. Look, he's not there yet. But that would be my problem. Like you give up Kuminga and you've got for Vucevic, who would be a great mentor for Quentin Post, but 35 years old at the start of the season. Like if Vooch was 30, I'd feel better about it. But to me, that move would kind of be much more of like, well, we got to get something for Kuminga. He's not, hey, we can't work it out here and when nothing's happening, like we got to get something. It would be like kind of like that type of move. That's what it would signal for me. But I think I'd like it better than the next name on my list. And that would be, again, we're here in tier 3, Nick Claxton. Another name that we've kind of been connected to. Brooklyn apparently not preparing an offer sheet for Kuminga. They're hunting big fish for whatever that's worth. But yeah, look, Nick Claxton, modern big man, runs the floor, rebounds really well, good hands, and is an emotional midget. Like he crashes out like once a month. And I don't think that he can be trusted when it matters. But it's another possibility. Someone else that I would prefer over Nick Claxton now that we're getting to the bottom of this tier 3 list, John Collins. He's buried in Utah, 27 years old. He's only 27, man. Feels like he's been in the league a long time. 1 year left at $26 million. Maybe that's the sign and trade for Kuminga. Do you think Kuminga would sign off on going to Utah? I'm not sure that the fashion scene would be what he wanted, let alone the snow, right? I don't know about that, but I think you could perhaps acquire John Collins in other ways, right? And I think it was his final season in Atlanta. He broke his shooting hand, and it really messed with his shot. It's not a pretty shot to begin with, right? But it totally eviscerated his three-point shooting. And I was out on him. I was like, all right, like that was kind of like what put him over the top as a guy that I was interested in if he could spread the floor. And he refound his shot, his three-point shooting in Utah this season. He's an elite lob threat, an elite vertical spacer. Dare I say an elite rebounder. He's right around that. He's a really, really good rebounder. And so, yeah, I like him better than Nick Claxton or Vucevic. I'll tell you that much. But the issue would be, what is he, 6'8", 6'9"? And I know he's super vertical, a lot of bounce, but we would still be small. I don't think he's big enough to play. Kerr will play him at the 5. Kerr will. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, he doesn't solve the size issues when you're seeing a Steven Adams, when you see a Jokic, when you see a AD. He's not big enough in that sense. But I think that overall, he would be a fit in the front court with Jimmy and Draymond as far as he's shooting the 3 better, and then he gives them that check down, that lob threat, rebounds the ball. That'll do it for my big men list here of the 3 tiers. Let me know if I left anyone out that you'd be interested in, or give me maybe your top 3 choices on this one in the bottom 2 tiers. We all know Giannis and Jiren Jackson would be amazing. I was going to throw Zion in here, but I mean, listen, I don't think anybody would touch him with someone else's draft picks at this point, right? Like that, it's just a crazy situation. But we'll talk wings and playmakers. And again, there's going to be a lot of different options. It doesn't just have to be a hunt for a big man, even though that should be atop the priority list. Realistically speaking, the Warriors will probably go get 2 more guards, right? But we'll talk about the wing position in the next video. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.